Alright guys, let's build what we saw in the thumbnail. This is our hardcore Minecraft series, and I don't think we need an intro since you clicked on the video, you know what we're building. Let's just build it. Before that though, there is one little interlude that we're going to have. We need to build this little logging area. Nothing crazy, but I did say that everything we do, we are going to have a build associated with it. So we need a bunch of wood. We're going to build something associated with a bunch of wood. I didn't know exactly how to do this. I have ideas for like a logging area with like a stone cutter as a sawmill and stuff like that, but I didn't really think it was appropriate for this point in progression. Maybe when we add like an automated tree farm with TNT and all that stuff, we'll do that. But for now, this is manual labor, so I really just wanted to add some logs over here and maybe tie them down with some minecart rails. So that's exactly what we do. And honestly, it doesn't look crazy, but it does look cozy and it adds a little bit more personality to our Minecraft world. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. Because even just this 30 seconds of building and adding a single lantern to it, and I guess we'll leave the crafting table here, that just adds so much character to this world, and that's what we were missing in our last world. So torch doesn't look right. I don't know why I even thought of placing a torch since I always want to leave lanterns here. So luckily I'm carrying a little bit of iron on me. Let's make a lantern, and honestly, right there should be fine. Same spot. That looks perfect to me. So there it is. Now we're done and we can work on our actual build for today. Believe it or not, that build does start with chopping down more of these trees because we need a bunch of spruce wood for spruce wood stairs, spruce wood trapdoors, all that stuff. But I won't show it to you guys. Just know it was happening behind the scenes and know that this little spider right here was supervising the whole process. If you didn't know, they don't attack during the daytime. If you kill them during the daytime, you either really need string or you're a really bad person. That being said, let's build this wheel. I'm going to implement a little bit of replay mod, not too much replay mod, but just a little bit of replay mod for some of the trickier bits. Or, for example, like this moment, when I miss all my parkour jumps and I don't want to be embarrassed, I will use replay mod. So I fell in the water too many times, and the first person to this was really weird, so enjoy the 10-second version. Before we build up the rest of the house, I do just want to come in here and add these half slabs. I didn't do it originally because I was intentionally trying not to farm up this sugarcane until we had a build for it. But now that we technically have a build starting, I decided it would be the perfect moment to do that. And I'm not going to expand it until the actual house is in. But for now, this will do the trick. Anyways, let's actually log in and start planning this house. So I did use a reference for the water wheel, and that's why it was a little bit tricky for me to follow. But for the rest of this, I'm just going right off the top of the dome. So we're going to start out by framing this, and I'm not sure exactly where I want it to sit yet. But obviously I do want that spoke of that water wheel, or I guess it's an axle, not a spoke. I do want that rod to come into the house, so I'm thinking right here will be good. And then I realize I actually want that to be out one further because I want to inset the cobblestone and the other stone types that we use for the wall. So I am going to push this out just one more piece and then get rid of this original spot because I do think it will look better in the end. And there's our dog just shaking himself off on the water wheel. We still don't have a name for him yet, but we did get a name tag in the last episode. So if you want to name the dog, throw a name suggestion and I'll either pick the one that stands out to me or the one you guys upvote, or however we want to do it. We'll pick a random name from the comments or something. For now, though, I do need to actually stretch out this land. I thought about it for a while. I kind of wanted it to be in the water, but I also kind of didn't want it to be in the water. So I did one side that is in the water, and then the side over here is not going to be in the water. I don't know. I was indecisive, so I did both. This is the one that's going to be in the water, so I still stretch this out just a little bit so it doesn't look too unnatural. And then I actually am going to switch this dirt block out for a wood log. I thought about doing a spruce log so it was a little bit darker and it seemed to be wet or waterlogged or something like that, but didn't end up doing it because it is only one block. If it was multiple blocks that were doing that, maybe I would go back and do it, but I don't know. For some reason I thought it wouldn't match. Also, since I didn't have a plan in mind when I started building this, I don't really know how big it's going to be yet, so I'm kind of just feeling it out, seeing what I want to do, but I do want it to be an odd number. Is this length or width? I don't really know. I'm going to call it width. I do want it to be an odd number in width just so that I can have a single door and so that the roof will look a little bit easier and nicer to build. And for now though, I do need to actually punch out some of this dirt. which is a trend. I have to constantly expand and terraform and all that just because this area is not the most natural, but luckily it is pretty flat, so it's not too bad at all. That being said, I thought about cutting it out, but since this is just a pretty organic building video and I do want it to be the length that you guys thought, I figured you wouldn't mind watching me do a little bit of terraforming as long as it's nothing crazy. That being said, the torches are finally going to move onto these wooden planks. That's where I wanted them the whole time, but since we didn't have a build, I didn't really want to make that sugarcane farm official. And now we're finally getting in the outline of this first build, unless we include the mines, but I don't know, that one's hidden underground, so it might not count. So far though, I do think it's looking good. This isn't going to stay as cobblestone, so we're going to need to get some additional blocks down from the mine. So I'll meet you guys once I grab all those blocks. But for now, before I go grab all that, I'm just going to extend these out by one log. I think it'll add some depth and ultimately end up looking a little bit nicer. And I don't do this in the other way, so I'm doing this from water to house right now. And I didn't end up going from sugarcane to where we are, if that makes sense. So like pointing directly at the camera right now until the final touch-ups. So I did end up adding that, but not until after. It really doesn't make a huge difference, but it is nice. Anyways, let's get that stone. There is a little bit of a cut here. I didn't really add too much extra, but I just kind of put in some places for the windows and the doors, and now I'm going to go ahead and put in some stone bricks and some normal stone. Had to cook this up over in the mine because we don't have silk touch yet, so now I'm kind of thinking maybe we should do the enchanting build next, but to do that we're going to need a bunch of leather, and that's why I did this sugarcane one actually, was so we could start enchanting. All the paper for the books are going to come from here. So next I really want to do cows, but I don't know, I also kind of want to do sheep because I think the wool will be really useful for outlining stuff so we can actually plan out some builds better on a larger scale. Since all this stuff is probably going to be pretty close to each other, I don't really want to just kind of randomly do it every time. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, let's go back in and texture up these stone blocks. I don't know why I didn't do this as a kid. If I did, my builds all would have looked so much better, especially because they were just kind of big boxes and stuff. But I used to think it was like tricky and you had to not randomly place it. You had to do some logical way, and you just don't at all. You can place whatever you want, wherever you want, and it'll end up working. But generally what I end up doing is more of the, I don't want to call them concrete, more of the like refined blocks go toward the bottom. So in this instance, it'll be the stone bricks. And then up above that, I'll have a little gradient into the normal stone. So as you can see right now, I'm putting some of that normal stone on top. And then above that is going to be the cobblestone. It could be literally however you want to do it. On my old starter house, I used tough blocks. And they were like darker, more of a blue-green kind of color. So if I wanted to use that on the water wheel side, for example, that would probably look pretty good. But I don't think we need all those super fine details, especially because this build is pretty small. So I think I'm fine with the gradient that we have right now. And so this last layer that we're doing is just going to be all cobblestone with no gradient, and that is the roof of our build. So it'll be about that high, which is a pretty high ceiling. Whoever's going to work here, our cartographer, is going to have a nice house, nice high ceiling. He's going to have 4 walls, a roof over his head. I gotta say that's probably better than the cartographers in my last season. I used them to get a bunch of emeralds from glass plane. Wow. From glass panes. And I had about 8 of them in a hole. So yeah, this is definitely better living conditions than that. And I don't think they need anything more than this. It is kind of interesting though. This might be the first time I actually use a cartographer. In the past, I only ever used them to get emeralds off of. But you can actually get the maps for whatever the trial chambers are called. I don't know is it a trial map? I don't know. But whatever map. So once we get this guy, we can actually go and explore those. So that'll probably be the way that we end up getting slime, and then that'll probably open up our world to more redstone once we can get sticky pistons and stuff like that. So this guy's actually going to be super useful. I never thought, I mean, I guess the cartographer is not directly responsible for paper, but within the cartographer, within this build, we're going to have access to max level enchantments. We're going to have access to, I don't know, books and quills, bookshelves for decorations, stuff like that. And I never really would have thought about that if I wasn't doing this challenge. I don't really know if you can call it a challenge, but if I wasn't playing in this way that is kind of slowing down my progression and all that stuff, I don't think I would ever notice the cartography villager and what he does unless it's the glass paints for emeralds trade, because that was pretty useful in my last world when I had a sand duper and a what's it called, super smelter. That was literally just free money. But anyways, we're gonna throw up these stairs. We're trying to keep depth on the wheel side, but really it's kind of tricky because it's just a big wall. And I thought about actually building an area where that wheel would mill the sugarcane into sugar, but I decided against it because it doesn't have to be logical. This is Minecraft. It looks nice, it serves its purpose, and it gets the idea across. So I'm fine with it just being a textured wall with a little bit of depth and a wheel sticking out of it. For now though, let's throw in the floor, and I usually just make pretty basic floors. I don't really do anything too exciting ever. It's usually just textured stone in the mines, or it's stripped wood logs or something like that. And for this one, it's not going to be any different. I might explore with some new floor types later on in the world, but for now, we're just going to use some spruce logs and throw them in here. Obviously, they're going to be facing this way though, because I do not want them to be facing up. That would look pretty silly. And I'm going to strip them because I think they look really nice stripped. And if I didn't strip them, I think it would just be too dark. I don't know. We used oak outside, so if we do this, it's a really dark floor, and I don't think it really matches anything. So yeah, not going to do this, but I might play around with some texturing on it. We could do like a checkerboard, or we could do vertical, horizontal stripes, however we want to do it. It is a pretty small area, so I guess I'll try it out this time. I'll go with stripes since, I don't know, I don't really want it to be too complicated. Maybe checkerboard would have looked better, but for now these stripes suck, so I don't like them. I'm just gonna strip it all, because you still do get those little stripes even though there's not a huge difference. You can still see that there's a little bit of difference. So I like that, and for now we have to build the roof. The roof was a little bit tricky, especially because it's not a symmetrical build, so the wheel side actually is a little bit higher since we have to avoid the wheel. So I'm just going to use replay mod for this because it took me a while and I had to play with a few different variations of it, so we don't need first person for all that. But as you can see, I built it a little bit short and popped it back up, and then I extended the oak pillars up by another 2 or 3 blocks. And I think that looks really nice. So now we have a super high roof, and we have really split up 2 different layers, which looks cool. Other than that, we just have to put in the final finishing touches on the outside, which should be pretty simple. And we're going to use windows. I think this is the first time that I've ever used non-glass windows. I just kind of wanted to keep it older. It's not a super advanced world yet. So I don't want to do anything high tech. That's why we don't have like street lights anywhere. We're just using torches and stuff. So I don't really want to use glass yet. And I think this looks pretty nice, and it keeps a nice humble feel to the house. Even though it is going to be a nice humble feel, I don't want to skimp on details anywhere. So I want this build to look finished and refined. I just don't want it to look super advanced or fancy. And I think that's something that we're navigating around pretty well so far. I mean, all this depth that we've added has been with cobblestone and wood, so I think that's pretty cool. We didn't need any pottery or any lanterns, anything like that just yet, so I'm overall pretty happy with this. And we've never experimented with fence gates as support beams in this channel, so it's kind of cool to see myself growing in my, I don't want to call it artistic capabilities, but in my, what do we call that, my building palette? I don't know. But kind of growing out of my comfort zone just so I can continue to deliver you guys new builds. And honestly, that looks super nice to me. I don't think we really need to add anything more there. We could add more up on that second layer, but I don't know what we would add except for like some plants or some balconies or something like that. And I just wasn't feeling it for this build. So we are just going to go ahead and take these fence gates and put them around the rest of the house, including the wheel side. So we have 2 more sides to go. I thought about decorating the wheel side a lot more, but really I just didn't know what we could do over here. I think it just kind of had to serve its purpose, and it did serve its purpose, and nobody's gonna see it too often because it's in the water. So even if it was ugly, shout out Grian for the back of his house. I'm just kidding. Even if it just didn't have anything, I think it'd be fine since nobody's ever gonna see it from here. Going back to the front, I think we're pretty much done with the outside of the house. There's going to be a little bit more terraforming. We do need to build a path to extend to the house from the campsite and from the mine. But otherwise, I think I'm just going to hit the floor with some bone meal, throw some flowers in, something like that, and make sure that obviously we can walk from the house to the sugarcane, since that's the whole point of the build. I feel like I got lucky with my bone meals here. I don't know if it's because we're in a meadow biome. Yeah, we're in a meadow biome. I don't know. We're right between a plains biome and a meadow biome wherever we've been building. So I think this is still a meadow biome. So we are getting cool flowers and stuff when we bone meal. But that's besides the point. We are just gonna extend this sugarcane farm by a little bit since we are gonna need a lot of paper to get our enchanting station going. But I don't think we need an automatic sugarcane farm yet, just because I don't know. We don't need that much. So I think this will be perfectly fine, and if we ever do need to add automated sugarcane farms, they'll fit nicely in like a basement, or we could even do them up in the attic or something like that. But honestly, the attic ends up looking pretty good at the end of this, so I don't think I want to change it. Also, it's pretty small, so we wouldn't get that much sugarcane out of here. So if we wanted to convert this into like an actual automated sugarcane farm with observers and stuff like that, we could do it, but I think we should just throw it in the basement. And honestly, we don't need that much sugarcane since we probably won't get an elytra for a long time. And without an elytra, you don't really need paper once you get your enchanting station going. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, this should be perfectly fine for at least 10-20 episodes of this series. I will throw in these final touches though. Waterlog these half slabs so you can run over it. The worst part of the sugarcane farm is whenever you have to jump into the water and try to get all the little pieces that flew into there. So I am happy to finally have this, and we'll just add some sugarcane all around it, and that pretty much solves our paper problem. So I'm excited that we actually have our first farm built. I know technically this isn't our first build since we did the mines last episode, but the mines are kind of an obligatory build to enable us to do anything like this. I can't really imagine doing this with just stone tools. I could imagine it would be exactly the same. It would just take longer, and it wouldn't be a longer process that feels purposeful. It would just feel like it takes longer to take longer. So that being said, I did a little bit of interior decoration off camera, not really to make it look nice, but just to manage my inventory. Since we don't have a centralized storage area yet, it kind of got a little bit hectic, but everything is honestly pretty good now. So we just have the cartography table there, the bed for the guy to sleep in, and I'm trying to figure out where to put these barrels, and I end up not wanting one above the bed, so I think 3 in this top corner will look pretty good. And that lets us have sugarcane in the big double chest, paper in the single chest, and we're going to end up putting sugar up in the barrels. I don't know. There's nothing else we really need to store here, and I think the 3 sugarcane related things should each have their own separate storage place, and it also looks pretty nice. So I can't complain, but for now we're just going to dump all of our stone into here, and since there's 3 barrels, I'll probably end up putting wood in a different one, and I really need to clean up these chests. I had, I think, 2 separate chests just lying around so I could offload my inventory, but eventually I do remember bundles, so if you haven't used bundles, use bundles. They're awesome and they're cheap, but for now we're going to design the attic. And this is where storage completely stops being a problem. If I wanted to, I could use this as storage for the whole world, because honestly there's like 20 barrels and stuff in here. I could store whatever I want, but I really don't plan on using this ever. If it's not part of the intended purpose for a build, I don't want to use it like that. So like for the mines, I had potatoes and stuff like that stored down there, not as a way to store food long term, but just because it's a little bit thematic, like, I don't know, eating potatoes and stuff in the mine and having material for torches down in the mines. That all makes sense. What wouldn't make sense is if I threw, I don't know what I would need to store, a bunch of dirt. If I threw stacks and stacks of dirt up in the attic of a sugarcane farm, it doesn't really feel thematic or purposeful, so I'm not going to do that personally. What I will do though is throw up some lanterns because they do look better than torches, and I don't know, they just, that right there looks so nice. Even if it wasn't necessary, I think I would add it. And speaking of these nice additional touches, I do want to build candles. I've never used candles, but since we were doing a lot of nice interior decorating and trying to make things cozy and thematic, I think candles would do very well. I was thinking about this in the mine, and honestly, it would probably look really nice on top of the cartography table. So he could have lanterns and candles. He could work however he wants, but yeah, I don't really know. This isn't going to be totally finished yet. I do want to add some cobwebs, and we found a mine shaft down in the mines, believe it or not. That's where they spawn. We found a mine shaft, so I took some shears to it and got some cobwebs. I love adding cobwebs into the attics. It makes them seem so much more finished, and especially when we have a big open roof like this, nothing is occupying that space, so it is nice to just have something up there, and you don't really have to have a lot of them for it to look nice. So yeah, we'll add those in later, and you guys will see that in the outro. But for now, we need to fill in these windows, and I couldn't decide between oak or spruce fences. Honestly, I think the oak looks a little bit nicer, but we'll see. I don't know. The oak looks nice. The spruce also looks kind of nice. It matches the roof. So this matches better from the inside, but the spruce matches better from the outside since it matches with the roof and not with the wall. So I end up going with the spruce. It looks a little silly inside, but I do think it looks better outside. And since we do have all the spruce fences it's like directly above us, not on the wheel side, but on the side opposite the wheel, there's just a row of fences, has like a big window into the attic. So I think that the spruce fence gates just, I don't know, they look pretty nice. And honestly, this build is looking pretty much done. Obviously, we're going to come back in here with some lanterns, but the primary issue on my mind right now is our inventory space, because I love having a clean inventory and we don't right now. So here's when we finally build those bundles that we needed. I'm only going to make 2. I guess I could technically make a bunch, but I can only think of yellow dye and red dye right now. I guess I could have made white with bone meal, but bone meal is kind of a hot commodity if I ever need food in a pinch. And yeah, I don't know. I could still use one since I kind of want to use one for this red dye anyways, but I also don't really want another bundle because 3 bundles seems like a lot. And I thought I could make pink like that. Can't make pink, so I will go with red. I don't know. I didn't really want a red bundle. Didn't seem super necessary. The yellow one is going to end up in a chest, just holding our precious items though. And for now, this build's looking almost done. We just need a little bit of lighting outside. I accidentally broke down some of these. I don't know, they seemed like a fire hazard. I guess it wasn't an accident, but I probably should have left them since I did bone meal to create those. So I don't know what I was thinking there, but I do know we need lighting back here because if a creeper spawns on those few blocks and makes its way into the sugarcane, it will probably kill me because creepers blend into sugarcane so well. But now we can actually light up our sugarcane farms since we have those half slabs on top of the water. At first we had to do it on the dirt next to it, and it just didn't look great. But now that we have these torches up, everything feels great. So that's everything. Let's roll the outro and show you the builds that we made. Starting up, we have our logging area. Nothing super crazy. We have our spruce chest, and there is all our spruce relating building stuff. And I also went back and got our pale stuff. So pale wood and saplings and all that stuff is going to be right there. I'm not going to farm them up too much until we can actually get a build. But if we run over here, we can see that I did make a path leading to our new sugarcane watermill little situation. I still don't know what to call it, but it has a path. And the path doesn't look perfect yet because I do want to implement some coarse dirt and gravel, but I just don't have a lot of that yet. So in time it'll come, but for now, here it is. I added those little logs pointing out, and I think it looks a lot better. I added a red bed instead of a white bed, and I don't know, that looks better. Got lanterns in here, nice view of the sugarcane, the paper, the cartography table, and the sugar up there. So if we go up into the attic, this is my favorite part per usual. We have the cobwebs and the lanterns, and it all just looks nice. Absolutely nothing in these chests, but if for some reason we have too much sugarcane or too much sugar or whatever it might be down here in the bottom layer, then we can just add it up to the attic. Other than that, added a coordinate book, so now I can keep track of all the coordinates in case we get lost or anything. definitely did not do this because I got lost looking for the pale garden that we spawned next to. But yeah, now we'll have that, and it'll be cool to kind of implement that just throughout the series when we add cool stuff. There is an amethyst geode that I found somewhere, so I might add that. But for now, let's just get a nice little view of this. Again, that wheel wall, it looks a little bit funky, but honestly, I think it looks fine. I don't really know what it's supposed to look like. This looks really weird though. I don't know how I haven't noticed this earlier. But yeah, there's the view. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. I don't know. I don't like asking for likes. Take care though.